It's not open it up. And then pause it. Okay, you're all set.
All right, please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our February 8th meeting. 9th? Yeah, yesterday was the 8th. Appreciate everyone being here. Can we please start with minutes, motions for the minutes, please? May I have a motion that the minutes for January 12th, 2025, 2026 be approved?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll make the motion. I'll second the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I please have a motion that the minutes for January 26th, 2026 meeting be approved?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Now you guys don't wait. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, both of those have passed. We have a presentation tonight. We have Maura Bell-Greenberger. She has been our consultant for our Revitalize East Spa project, and she's here to present kind of the findings and next steps. So thank you for being here. It is
Start right here?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. As Trustee Bernadette mentioned, my name is Maura Bell-Greenberger. I'm a senior planner with Labella Associates. We've been working with the village and the committee that was appointed by the village board on the Revitalize Ballston Spa project since about September 2024. So excited to be here, kind of the culmination of this process to outline the final recommendations from the plan and talk about next steps. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slides.
Oh, well, let's try that instead.
So I'm going to start today, just in case anyone wasn't at any of the meetings that we had throughout this process, to give a little bit of an overview on the project background and the planning process that went into the final plan. I'll then talk about the project vision and goals, because that's really the foundation that informed the recommendations in the plan, and then talk a bit about implementation and next steps before opening it to any questions. Okay, let's skip 2 ahead. Skip that slide there. Thank you. So the Revitalize Ballston Spa plan is actually funded. 90% of the costs are being covered through a grant from the Department of State that the village was successful in obtaining a couple of years ago. That funding program is called the Brownfield Opportunity Area, or BOA program. This is a program with the state that's been around since 2003, and it's really evolved over time. It's not about just brownfield redevelopment. It's really about how do we incentivize investment in sites that are maybe a little bit complicated, they're vacant, they've been sitting underutilized, abandoned for years. How do we get that investment to come onto those sites? What are the hurdles that you see on those sites, whether it's things from a zoning standpoint, an infrastructure standpoint? It's really identifying what's the reasons that these sites, which I think, given how much revitalization has been happening in Ballston Spa, what are the reasons that that's not happening across the board in the community? So we start this process with evaluating those issues, opportunities, identifying what are those hurdles, what are the opportunities to seize on, developing a community-supported vision, and then looking at priority sites. So these are those key properties where if they were to see some sort of revitalization, it would have spillover effects and benefits to the community. And then we develop some overall recommendations. This program, which is one of the reasons I really love working in this program, this isn't just a plan where you put something in the plan and it sits on the shelf. There's a lot of incentives and benefits of preparing a plan through this funding program. Specifically, at the conclusion of this, and I'll wrap up to talk a little bit more about it, the village can get BOA designation, and that has a lot of benefits with it, including dedicated funding streams that only the 70 or 80 communities across New York State that have this designation have access to, prioritization to pretty much any state grant program that you apply to, and also property owners can get an additional tax credit if they are a brownfield site that is going through the brownfield cleanup program. Okay, if you go on the next slide. So the program's not about just sites, but thinking holistically, not at the full community, municipality borders, really, but looking kind of at an area. And so what you're seeing on the screen here is the study area for the revitalized Beach Spa plan. This extends on the north from the village border along Route 50, really that kind of gateway that you don't really necessarily realize you're in the village when you're in that section as much. It has a much different feel from the rest of Milton Ave when you're heading across the creek. We also wanted to capture the areas to the west of Milton Ave, so kind of seeing where that extension of some of the vibrancy and revitalization has been happening into that area. It includes several key sites. And then going down to the former nursing site at the large area at the bottom here that you're seeing here as well. If you go to the next slide. So just to go through the overall planning process, as I mentioned, we started this in about September of 2024, working with the Project Advisory Committee. We started really just diving into the data. What are some of the conditions here? What are we seeing in terms of zoning, in terms of floodplain, in terms of slopes, soils? We really did a deep dive into any of those factors that might be influencing revitalization or lack thereof. We then, in the winter of this past year, had a public survey that was launched and our first public event that was held in about March or April of last year. That was all focused on visioning. So starting to identify what is the vision for revitalization for this area in Ballston Spa. From there, throughout the spring and summer, we started honing in on key sites, those sites where they could have spillover benefits if they were to be revitalized, and did a lot of coordination with those property owners. So a key component that really factors into the success of these plans is getting the property owners on board in terms of presenting a vision for their properties. Then throughout the summer and fall, we took all of that information to come up with some recommendations for these sites and supporting policy recommendations, and that's stuff that I'll be walking through. And now we're at the final phase where we're looking for public feedback and the plan to be adopted by the village board. I mentioned, thank you, there was a committee that was involved in this process. You can see the names of the committee members here on the screen. In addition to those committee members and the meetings, we had about 6 over the past year and a half. There was also a lot of engagement in the form of the first public workshop I noted. We had a website where information was posted in addition to having information on the village website. Tried to get things out in press releases. If you saw signs on the side of the road, a lot of outreach to property owners, key stakeholders. There was that visioning survey I mentioned. And then throughout the summer, we had additional targeted outreach, and then we had a final kind of large public workshop in November where we looked at all of the recommendations. So what we're talking about here tonight is the feedback from those recommendations and how they got folded into the overall plan. Okay, so in terms of the overall vision and goals, again, this is really where the vision of where we see this area moving forward. Luckily, there's a lot to build on with the recently completed comprehensive plan. So we had a draft vision statement that was presented at the first workshop, refined based on feedback, and that's what you're seeing on the screen here.
Barbara, 1 second.
Yeah.
The presentation
Is not, it's a
not
PDF,
connected.
it's not I can't share it as a slideshow.
But it's not even being shared across.
No, I know. There's no way for me to
It won't let you share that?
no, because it's not
Okay.
there's not a video.
We'll
The
make
only
sh-
thing I could think to do though would be for a minute to change the,
Yeah, why don't you change
Camera
this
angle?
And
that was the only
for-
thing but I had to make her
sorry,
stop first.
For people that, we'll get it up online as well, for
Okay.
people to look at it, after the meeting.
Yeah, sorry.
Because that's all they can
Okay,
see,
so we're good.
is what
Yeah.
is on the camera.
Can you do share
Yes.
screen? Would that work?
That's what I thought was happening.
Let's try. There's that.
Usually share screen, you should be able to share PDF.
I can try.
There we go.
Yeah, so if you do that, that should hopefully work.
But
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah,
now
should
is
be
that,
Yep, I think you're good now.
okay, great. So there we go.
There we go.
Okay.
So this is the overall vision. I will just, in case not everyone can see it on their screen. So Ballston Spa envisions a vibrant, connected community that honors its historic charm while embracing thoughtful growth and innovation. The village will build upon its walkable downtown and close-knit community by creating dynamic spaces for residents and visitors of all ages, with a thriving mix of local businesses, diverse housing options, engaging community spaces, and improved infrastructure. By enhancing community connections, preserving historic character, and fostering sustainable development, Ballston Spa with balanced small town charm with modern amenities to support a high quality of life for generations to come. So from that vision, we identified 5 goals.
Oh, wait, I went too far.
Oh, you're okay. Okay, so these are kind of the buckets with which any recommendation was kind of formed. So the first, and this is really central to the BOA program, is to revitalize vacant and underutilized properties. So we're really looking at those site-specific recommendations. Second goal is to enhance downtown vitality. I mentioned that several times about how you have this revitalization on front. Milton, how do you extend that into other areas? Improving infrastructure and connectivity was another identified goal. Expanding housing options, and then lastly, celebrating and enhancing natural and cultural resources. So from there, we developed an overall master plan that focused on strategic sites. If you go to the next slide. The map that you're seeing on the left, this is the strategic sites. So these are those sites that with the committee were identified as really key for revitalization, that if they were to see some sort of improvement, it would have those spillover benefits, and there were 7 sites that were identified. And from that, we developed an overall master plan, which is the image that you're seeing on the right here, and I will be zooming into more details, so don't worry if you can't see that here. I do just want to note that during this process, and this was actually pretty interesting, that a lot of times when we've done these plans, these properties that are identified as priorities, they're still sitting vacant. There's not any discussions of what's going to happen by the end. As you're very well aware, several of these sites, there's applications before the planning board, ZBA with proposals for those. So we've identified those as key sites. We're not including any specific recommendations beyond noting their importance to be revitalized in the instances of those sites. So I'm going to focus instead on recommendations for the other properties that are identified on the screen here. So first, looking at what we're calling the Northern Gateway. So this is that Route 50 Doubleday Ave entry into the village from the north. What you're seeing on the screen here is the Ocean State Job Lot property. This was identified as a key property because it's one of the first ones just after the Ted's Fish Fry as you're coming into the village. A lot of parking, a lot of opportunity to potentially see some infill development that could support that existing business, create more building that's maybe closer to the street wall, make that more walkable feel that you have in the center of the village extended up into the northern area. And so here we have kind of an image here, a vision of what that could look like. And again, talked with Ocean State Job Lot as part of this process. They're not proposing this at the moment, but they're supportive of including this as a long-term opportunity for their property. If you go to the next slide, outside of the sites themselves, one of the things, I think this has come up several times in past planning efforts of the village as well, is how do we create a more walkable gateway into the community. So we looked at potentially adding a planted median, narrowing lanes to traffic. I know the village was able to get CRTC funding to do some potential pedestrian safety improvements in the village, and that will be kicking off, and this is something that could really fold into that next step. Go to the next slide here. Beyond that kind of physical improvement to the roadway, we also had a recommendation to implement enhanced village signage, and so we were able to work with one of our team partners, Sidekick Creative, to develop a suite of wayfinding signs and gateway signs that the village could use that used the logo and colors of the village and showed different ways that that could be folded into, entryway, onto a street pole. So really, hopefully, that suite of options for easy implementation. If you go to the next slide, another key site was the Ricketts property. If you've gone by it recently, you've probably noticed the large installation that's on the fence there. That was actually something we were able to do as part of this planning process. We acknowledge that that work is still underway there, and it's going to be, multiple years before anything could actually start. And so we wanted to have an intervention there that would at least spruce it up in the meantime. But here what you're seeing is a vision for the long term of potentially some sort of beer garden, restaurant use on that site. Again, bring more activity into the Northern Gateway. So the next area, which is really from Milton and Front Street and extending over to Bath along Hamilton, is what we're calling the downtown extension. Here, recommendations for the public realm are to consider highlighting the bridges with signage, planters, lighting, such as what you're seeing on the screen here. Also, if you go to the next slide, another recommendation is really focused on Hamilton Street. That's a key connector that has very minimal pedestrian infrastructure. You're not kind of clear where cars should park there or not. It's right along the creek. There's real opportunities to highlight Hamilton Ave as a connector over to Bath Street. with more official pedestrian infrastructure. Go to the next slide. Another key site that was identified is the bowling alley property on Bath Street. That's kind of kitty corner to the tannery. There, the idea is to look at how could a new mixed-use development happen with ground floor commercial, upper floor residential. That's more, it kind of is still in keeping with the residential character that surrounds there, and really be that connector in that key location along Bath and Hamilton. And then lastly, in this area, a recommendation was to establish a legacy walking trail. And you can kind of see the idea of that here. And so how do we create these walking trails with signage, QR codes, kind of get people moving around, going along Washington Street? Is there an opportunity to look at that tunnel there? Really kind of creating an overall loop that would connect Milton and Front over to just west of the core of the downtown. And then lastly, the recommendation for the large nursing site really came straight out of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan had identified a cottage court style development, so we developed some concept plans, renderings. Again, it's all about kind of bringing to life some of these ideas that have been talked about, but now you have a picture of them that potentially could support a future funding opportunity. So beyond those physical improvements, the plan includes a series of supportive policy and programmatic recommendations that are all centered around those 5 goals that I talked about earlier. So first, again, going back to the goal of revitalizing vacant and underutilized properties, we have 4 underlying strategies. The first was to create incentives for adaptive reuse of historic buildings and redevelop vacant lots. So whether that's getting the historic district actually registered, going after some funding opportunities, whether it's New York Main Street, New York Forward, really supporting the revitalization of properties in the village. Next was to develop an inventory of available sites and market them to developers. So we have this baseline developed out of this process. There's opportunities to work with local partners to market those sites, and there's actually BOA money that could be used for something like that. Streamlining the development process, improving regulatory clarity. We know that the village is doing a zoning update right now, which addresses a lot of this. But the goal here was really about how do we demystify the planning process, especially for those smaller developers, wanting to make sure that local property owners, local developers are able to see some of their properties' visions come to life. And then lastly, we have a recommendation to establish infrastructure standards for commercial development. So kind of getting in the weeds, but it's about how do we make sure that when a project is built out, that it could support a small business, that they're not left with the fee of having to extend water or sewer for their small coffee shop that they want to put in. Those things that maybe a big box chain could support. We want to make sure that the small businesses can go into these developments. The next goal, to enhance downtown vitality. We have a recommendation to diversify and strengthen the downtown business mix. And so whether that's targeted recruitment, entrepreneurship support, really working with some of the local business organizations to ensure that the diversity of businesses continues to grow and really implement some of the strategies from the village's economic development plan. We also have a recommendation to create vibrant public places and programming, so those kind of third spaces for gathering, and enhancing the downtown identity and navigation with that wayfinding and the signage that I was talking about before. Goal 3, to improve infrastructure and connectivity. One recommendation is to expand pedestrian and bicycle connectivity. So there's been a lot of planning around this, again, with the bike and ped plan. As an example, I talked about Hamilton and improvements there, Route 50. Getting all this into this one plan was really a concerted effort to make sure that all these ideas that have been generated in past planning efforts can access funding to begin implementing through the BOA program. Strengthening water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure. Actually, as part of this planning process, we were able to map all of the water and sewer lines in the village and get that to be a GIS-based database for the village. And let's build on that and look at where those targeted improvements to support current and future uses. Improving parking accessibility and management. There is the benefit of a lot of private parking lots that allow for public use. How do we kind of make sure that that information is shared? There's clear signage. We understand the inventory there. And one of the key things also, which we always recommend as a first step when it comes to infrastructure, is looking at developing a comprehensive capital improvement plan. So you have that kind of path forward of the priorities that really then can help with getting funding. Goal 4, expand housing options, so expanding and improving housing options for residents of all ages and income levels, really looking at different funding that the village could get to support housing development. And then pursuing pro-housing community certification. So happy to answer questions on this, but basically under the governor right now, the pro-housing community program is something that's a kind of the carrot. So it's used as a way to, there's several funding programs you can't even access without being pro-housing. So it's a key thing in order to access grant funding currently. And then lastly, and this is the last of the recommendations, Goal 5, celebrate and enhance natural and cultural resources. So we have a recommendation here to celebrate historic character and support arts and cultural initiatives. This came up a lot, the interest in arts and culture. There's options to expand programming, have more wayfinding to connect to the existing assets that are here. And then looking at natural resources, it's really about flood resiliency. You have the creeks going through the village. I want to make sure that that's folded into any sort of new project or resiliency standpoint. So where do we go from here? We are, if you go to the next slide, we have the draft plan that was posted on the project website about a week ago. That plan is now available for the public. The next step will be to finalize the plan based on any feedback we get from the board or from the public. And then the plan would come back to the village board for adoption. That adopted plan would go with an overall designation package to the state, to the Department of State, to get that village BOA designation. And one of the key items here is we really want to target that happens before June, so the village has access to go after, to reap some of the benefits of the BOA program this summer grant cycle. And that's, I think, it. I flew through a lot, so now I'm happy to answer questions.
Let's start, any board questions? Or comments even?
Well, I want to thank you for being here and presenting to us tonight.
Happy to.
Thank you. There's a lot of information to absorb, and thank you for the packets.
Yeah.
Just so, a couple thoughts that a couple things I wanted to mention. We have two of our committee members. We have Chris Farrow and Shannon Hansen somewhere in the back. I saw her come in. There's a hand. They and the rest of the team were awesome. We had a great consulting team. Really just the whole group worked really well together. I also want to thank, a number of you have been to the public workshops, so thank you for weighing in and being a part of that. So, I think I don't know when we'll set the public hearing quite yet, but I want to give us an opportunity to digest it. But it is available on the revitalizeeastspa.com website, and we'll make sure a copy of that, and also the presentation gets on the village website. I think we'll leave it at that for now, and I don't want to get in back and forth necessarily, so if people have questions that want, just let us know, in the second public comment, that we can feed that to you,
Okay.
so. That's it, you guys it?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Norma.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep, hold on one
Paul,
second.
to keep the meeting moving, why don't you email if you have any particular questions? Or you could make it part of the public comment in the second part, if you want it on record. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay. There will be ample opportunity, because we will have a public hearing and we've had public workshops. We still have, as a board, to adjust it as well, so. All right. We are getting to public comment number 1, which is on our motions. Couple things I wanted to note. We are motion C. We have since received resignation letters, so motion C will be changed to an acceptance. Motion basically to accept the resignations of Matt Erkline, Mike McNamara, and Karen O'Marion, Steve Marvell. And then I just wanted to remind us, it was posted, but I figured I'd read it again just as a reminder for all of us, our board ground rules. All comments and questions from the public shall be directed to the board only, not specific department heads, consultants, or other members of the public. No one shall make statements during the meeting that involve personal, impertinent, or slanderous attacks on any group, organization, or individual. a member of the board, an employee of the village, a member of the audience, or a member of the public, regardless of whether the individual sought to be named is present. Excuse me. The use of profane, vulgar, threatening, racial, or ethnic slurs is prohibited. No one will disrupt the meeting with loud outbursts or other disruptive conduct or behavior, including but not limited to obscenity, heckling, taunting, cheering, physical threats, abusive language, etc. at the time of, during the meeting, at any time, excuse me. Failure to comply with the foregoing rules may result in early termination of allotted commenting time for the member of the public, denial of future requests to speak, removal from the meeting, and any other actions deemed necessary by presiding officer or by a majority vote of the board. The gist of this is, let's all be good citizens, and I can tell you from sitting on the board end, when there's a lot of activity out there, it's really difficult to hear and focus. So if we can just, be good readers, that would be appreciated. All right, public comment 1 on agenda items only. Anybody, Liz? Let me get my timer. All right.
Liz Cormos, 89 High. Well, I had comments on C, D through F. So I want to first commend the board for moving tonight to encourage resignations of the prior appointments to the planning and zoning board that involved individuals who are not, and still are not residents of Ballston Spa. By not moving forward with local law 1 to expand eligibility to non-residents, hopefully you're helping to ensure that decisions about what gets built in the village are made by people who actually live here. I also appreciate that a notice for planning and zoning board applicants was posted on the village website. However, it was not shared on village social media or in the newspapers. In the future, I urge you to use all forms of communication channels so that a wider pool of qualified village residents is aware of vacancies and has a fair opportunity to apply. Finally, I have a concern about the draft zoning code review, which by law must be conducted by the planning board. My understanding is that a deadline for that review was extended to approximately February 18th, I believe, somewhere around there. The difficulty is, to date, the draft code has not been reviewed by a fully and lawfully constituted planning board. Any input from individuals who were improperly appointed as members should not be treated as part of the planning board's official recommendation. I respectfully suggest that you extend the deadline again so that a fully seated, lawful, appointed planning board has adequate time to review the draft code and submit a proper defensible recommendation to this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? We have one hand online.
Keith?
Okay. Keith Lewis.
Keith Lewis, 38 East High Street. I want to speak about the 2 motions involving the DPW employee Mike Morrissey. One, to grant him his comp time, vacation, and personal time without consideration for the active Teamsters current contract parameters before his retirement, as set forth in that agreement, collective bargaining agreement. And another, to approve him as an alternate member on the planning board. The current Teamsters contract already spells out how DPW employees earn and are paid out for vacation, sick time, personal time, retirement, and the limitations. It sets caps on how much vacation can be carried over. It allows limited payout on unused sick leave, and a number of other things. It does not promise open-ended cash payment of unlimited time with no structure, the way the board has worded this motion. So when the board takes up a special resolution naming one employee and granting him payouts not tied to a contract term, it looks less like routine personnel benefit administration and more like a one-off financial favor. And that's especially troubling when on the same agenda, You're also asking to appoint the same individual to the planning board. Village ethics law doesn't just prohibit actual conflicts of interest, it also prohibits the appearance of impropriety and using public office to confer personnel on private gain. When residents see a personalized payout for a planning board appointment for the same person in the same meeting, it naturally raises that question, is this quid pro quo? And placing hardworking DPW staff in that position is unnecessary and disrespectful. The concern is made worse by the fact that the village board has not maintained a fully functioning board of ethics, and the code assumes there will be an active ethics board to review and advise on exactly these kind of situations. So right now, there's effectively nowhere to bring this to, or for the village officials who were planning this to ask for an advisory opinion. So my suggestion tonight is that you handle the retirement payout strictly under the existing contract and explain clearly which contract sections you're using so that you're applying this evenly. Two, that you not tie a payout on the same night that you appoint a planning board appointment, so there's no question. And you prioritize fully staffing the Board of Ethics so that you can get those advisory opinions and we don't have these kind of quid pro quo questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Martha?
Yeah, it's Mike Iguchi.
Oh, Mike.
Thank you. Good evening, Mike Iguchi, 3 Encore Drive. As I understand Bernadette's point earlier about motion 7C, that motion now will be to accept resignations of those 3 individuals. For whatever it's worth to you, I think that's fully appropriate. It, to me, represents an important first step in getting to properly implementing this committee. So I encourage you to accept those resignations. And that is not in any way meant to question the qualifications or character of those 3 individuals, simply to recognize that they are non-residents of the village, and I believe therefore cannot and should not be on the committee. With respect to 7D, E, F, and G, so I see that there are nominations for 2 appointments to the planning board and 2 appointments as alternates to the planning board. I believe at the January 26th meeting, there were 2 candidates with motions for them to be appointed, and those motions were tabled. So I'm just curious, were those 2 individuals considered as you went about the process of deciding on these 4 people to nominate for the committee? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ben?
Ben Baskin, 60 Ballston Ave. Both trustees, thank you for following the law and doing the right thing in response to clear resident consensus by removing people from the planning and zoning boards who are not village residents. Removal is no comment on their performance as planning board and ZBA members, and I thank them for their willingness to serve. Clearly, it was not difficult to find new planning board members who are residents, so that's a great precedent to see. The ethics law, we need an ethics board immediately. The law requires it. Some member terms expired years ago and the mayor either never noticed or didn't care. There were ways to manage the vacancies in 2025 and before that, and there are ways to manage it now without a change in the law. It is quite irresponsible that the mayor didn't start to reconstitute the board with new members at the 2026 organizational meeting at least, after all but 1 member resigned shortly before that. I think it's absolute dereliction of duty. As we've seen with the planning board, the mayor's preferred course of action is to ignore and break laws until he can change them to what he would like. That's clearly what he's doing now with the ethics law, though he will try to convince us that his hands are tied. Certainly, nothing is stopping the mayor from publicizing that there are 4 open seats, yet he refuses to do so. I asked the mayor back in May of 2025 to publicize the vacancy when Danielle Johnson resigned, as required by law, and he never did. Instead, people like me, Liz Cormos, and other private citizens have had to try to recruit people from our personal Facebook pages. That is not good governance by Mayor Rossi, as the Times Union has pointed out. I've asked the mayor repeatedly when I was a trustee, what changes he wanted to the ethics law, and he repeatedly refused to answer. Now that the mayor has the all-Republican board that he wants, maybe tonight, one of you, or if he's on Zoom, can let us know his intentions. His constituents have a right to know, just as they have a right to an ethics board. So there's actually a mechanism for filing ethics complaints. What do you tell people who might want to file an ethics complaint against the mayor or another public official? Sorry, you can't do it. There's no mechanism. Right now, the village is out of compliance with its own law, and that's a failure of the mayor's administration.
Thank you.
Not a lot to say, Lisa Spargo, and address known to the clerk. Just want to comment on the agenda items regarding the planning board appointments and such. Things were brought up at the last meeting that were, what are the qualifications for this? I'd like to know, how these qualifications came about, and attendance I think is very important. And I'd like to know for the alternates that are being put into this place, I'd like to know what their attendance was for the previous planning boards, because if they're not attending those ones, how effective are they gonna be as planning board, members full-time, not just alternates? So I just think that's important to take into consideration with that, and I'd appreciate it, thank you.
Anyone else? Alright.
I'm gonna be really brief. Ellie Dillon, 160 Malta Avenue, Ballston Spa. I just wanna thank you for listening to the residents of Ballston Spa. When I saw the resolution C, I had to read it, and I really appreciated that you listened to us. And tonight I was gonna come to lobby that it was a unanimous vote to pass it, but I see now that's not necessary. But it's just nice to know that when the people come out and they have reasonable requests, it gets done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Anyone else? Brandon?
Sean Raymond, 7 Chesterwood Court. First of all, I wanna commend the board on, essentially doing the right thing. And, following our laws and setting right some wrongful actions. And, if there is, I think the board members that were appointed, would have been fine, however, they didn't follow the law because they weren't residents. So it's important that we're consistent and we follow the law. And in regards to the motion on a specific employee who is under a Teamster contract, I encourage you to make sure you are following the letter of that contract, because if there's any deviation and any inconsistency moving forward, you've now created a precedent. So if you don't follow that precedent for every single member, that opens you up to liability. And I know I wouldn't want to be going up against Teamsters if I didn't do something by the book. So I just encourage you to make sure that you're gonna make the right decision on that. And one other thing I would have is the new members of the planning board, zoning board, I hope existing members will welcome them and help them get acclimated, and be open to the new voices on the boards, to listen to their opinions, even if it differs from yours. Without considering it being biased, as the chair of the planning board stated in the previous board meeting. So there's still a long way to go on a revised zoning code. And hopefully new planning board members can not only get up to speed on what has been done, but provide perspective on our proposed zoning and ensure it reflects the vision of the comprehensive plan, thereby representing the vision of our residents for the future of Ballston Spa.
Thank you. Alright. Last call, anybody? Alright, let's move to the motions. We have a consent agenda. Does anything need to be taken off of that? No. Alright, may I please have a motion, to, authorize Eagle Matley, to purchase repair services in the amount of $1,500.61 for Vandermoon fire apparatus, and the Ballston Spa Fire Department be authorized to purchase various supplies from Vandermoon fire apparatus in the amount of $1,535.40.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No, passed. Why don't we come back to motion A? Stephanie's checking in on a couple of things, so we have some information.
I think if you wanted to, if you had concerns that were raised by the public comment, you could say based upon the village's attorney further reviewing if such a collective bargaining agreement is consistent with the request made.
Oh, okay.
Since the attachments provided that he had this approval, obviously I don't have his contract in front of me or anything that was raised, but that way that then you're allowing the village attorney to confirm that it is consistent.
Alright, so I'll have to correct my wording.
Is that okay?
The DPW, may I please have a motion that the DPW employee Mike Morrissey be granted his payout comp time, vacation, personal time prior to his retirement upon attorney review.
Right, and attorney Bittner's review to ensure that it is consistent with the agreement at hand.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Alright, motion passes with, again, attorney review. It's definitely want to have eyes on that. May I please have a motion that Lawrence Youngblood be appointed deputy treasurer / deputy clerk for the remainder of the calendar year 2026 after a probationary period of 6 months completed successfully with an end date not to be before December 31st, 2026.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor? Any opposed? None? Alright. Motion C, I have language from, may I please have a motion to accept the resignations of Karen Avenarius from the Zoning Board of Appeals and Matt Erkline and Mike McNamara from the Planning Board effective immediately.
So moved.
I'll second it, but I'm service.
Yeah, thank you. It's not a reflection on them as people. I always appreciate when folks are willing to give their time to this community. Certainly we want to meet half the village in order as far as appointments. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay. May I please have a motion that Bob Bush be appointed, oh, sorry, no, I'm skipping stuff, I'm sorry, guys. Taking a pause. Going to, what Lisa's question is, kind of how are people decided on, the mayor did provide, comments, it's printed big for my eyes, it's not this many pages, but it is written by Frank, so bear with me, everyone. Board, thank you for your tireless work to make our village of Ballston Spa better. Also, thank you to Trustee Dunkelbarger, who has been working with me to interview candidates and review submissions. I wanted to provide an update on the application process for the planning and zoning boards and make recommendations for appointments to the planning board. First, to be clear, prior to the public hearing held at on January 26, 2026 meeting, I believe one actual resume had been received by me for consideration from Elizabeth Pormos. Here were the other materials received. Benjamin Baskin, sent a committee interest form. Another person sent a committee interest form, but board members and chairs spoke of the desire moving forward with them. The person did send a resume of their own volition on February 5th, 2026. Another person had entered the planning and zoning, entered planning and zoning potential interest on a committee interest form, but they seemed more appropriate for the ethics board when it was considered. They had shown an interest for the ethics board too. I have since confirmed with them that they would prefer the ethics board and will indicate to them when we are in a position to move that consideration forward. Another person had entered planning and zoning potential interest on the committee interest form, but after discussion with them, they felt that they would be better on the ethics board. I wrote that already, I apologize, guys. Another person had entered planning and zoning potential interest on committee interest form that I did not see until after the January 26th meeting. On February 1st, I indicated we needed a resume and cover letter, which I received on February 8th. After the meeting, as I suggested to the board, trustees worked with me to find additional potential members for these boards. We also received some organic interest from the meeting. I will detail these items as well. Trustee Bernadette had reached out to Chris Farrell from her work with him on the BOA committee where he sits as an alternate. He sent a committee interest form that I did not get to see until the day after our last meeting, and he subsequently sent me a resume upon request. Chris is basically a lifelong resident of the village. He had a small stint in Ohio but moved back, and I believe his father was a 17-year trustee on our board. Chris's knowledge of the village and appreciation for history and aesthetics of the village would be welcome addition, especially with his focus in his career on organizational skills, efficiency, and general knowledge of maximizing what people can accomplish, which is a key need on our planning board when working with applicants. Bernadette stated that he has worked well on the BOA committee, even in his alternate role, making Chris someone I'm recommending for full membership. I reached out after the last meeting to Sean Hinckley, who has reached out to me on several occasions during my tenure as mayor about a variety of planning and zoning topics. What I have always liked about Sean is how intuitive and fact-driven he is, viewing each situation on a case-by-case basis and trying to understand both sides of the discussion without a political viewpoint. He legitimately cares about the future of our village, and his level of respect is only matched by his level of experience and technical skills he presented on his resume. He understands his understanding of CAD, and he is not afraid to ask questions that seek to respectfully maximize what can be done to get the best result for our village. While he would be one of our youngest members, his youth and family-focused nature will be valuable to bring both diversity and a different point of view on our planning board. I highly recommend Sean as an alternate member of the planning board. Former village justice and current DPW employee Michael Morrissey reached out to me since our last meeting to indicate his interest in joining the planning board. Mike's over 20 years of work on our DPW and over a decade as our former justice have provided him a unique view of all the neighborhoods and properties of the village, our village. His body of knowledge on our DPW will be missed when he retires as a full-time employee of the village next month. The fact that he wants to stay involved as a member of our planning board is an opportunity we should not pass on. I highly recommend Mike as an alternate member of the planning board. Received a committee interest form from one person who has yet to send a resume after I reached out on February 1st. Two other members of the public sent resumes both on February 2nd and have responded to that they will be under consideration. In addition to the above, I'm recommending that Bob Bush Jr. be elevated from his alternate position on the planning board to full membership, as he has done great work over the past year in his role. He deserves full membership at this time. I wish I had more to report in terms of resumes sent or additional interest, but despite the most advertised scenario for the board position in our history, thanks to media and the public hearing, organic interest has remained overall very weak. I should also be clear that a lot of words, everyone, I'm sorry. Be clear that Mayor, and rescinding the recommendations to the board for Elizabeth Cormos and Ben Baskin as planning board membership after discussions I had with board members. It was clear that with at least some of the additional interest being showed, members of the board were not interested in pursuing them further. As such, the tabled motions from January 26, 2026 should be considered moved. If all recommendations are approved that I have made in this letter, we'll have 7 members of the planning board, including 2 alternates, and 7 members of the zoning board, including 2 alternates. I will continue to work with Paul to make recommendations on the remaining 2 alternate positions over the coming weeks, However, we both felt it was important to get a level of 7 people on each board immediately to ensure participation at Wednesday's Saratoga County Planning and Zoning Conference. Thank you as always for your time and consideration of these matters, Frank. All right, hopefully that explains some of the thought process. All right, yes. All right. Thank you, there, sorry. All right, may I please have a motion that Bob Bush be appointed as a full-time planning board member for the remainder of the calendar year 2026, plus 4 additional years with an end date not to be before December 31st, 2023.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. May I please have a motion that Chris Farrell be appointed as a full-time planning board member for the remainder of the calendar year 2026, plus 3 additional years with an end date not to be before December 31st, 2029.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Passes. May I please have a motion, Sean Hinckley be appointed as planning board alternate member for the remainder of the calendar year 2026, with an end date not to be before December 31st, 2026.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. May I please have a motion to Mike Morrissey be appointed as planning board alternate member for the remainder of the calendar year 2026 with an end date not to be before December 31st, 2026.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
May I please have a motion approving the attached agreement with Silk Fiber for internet and telephone services and related installation equipment in most village facilities, and approving the mayor to execute the agreement. Oh man, guys, I'm sorry. Approving the mayor to execute the agreement. He's made a note that the combined amounts for monthly service result in $8,000 annual reduction in costs.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I realized, and I did this at the time, I apologize, if anybody had comments, let me know. It's too late for all of those, but certainly if needed, but there was consensus at least. All right, any discussion on this?
No.
None, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. I will remember that one day, I do apologize to everyone. Mayor's announcements. I'm not the mayor did provide announcements. Just to get some more information where we are. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. Can I take a sip of water
Yeah.
first, actually?
I have extra bottles, too.
I joke that we should each take a part.
Thanks.
Alright. Board and members of the public, this is Frank, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well despite this cold weather. As you all know by now, I announced at the end of our last meeting that I would be taking a step back from day-to-day duties to a degree after discussing it with members of our staff and others prior to the January 26th meeting. I continue to work on my health, although getting the horrible chest cold that has been making its way around the community certainly has not helped. I'm heading down to Florida to help to manage the Sunshine Cup LGBTQ+ flag football tournament, and I'll be taking some extra time down there to get my health back in a better spot. For those wondering what this means in terms of how the village government will work, I am still fielding daily calls, emails, and other messages from staff and residents. Our village residents' concerns Our village's residents' concerns matter. Whether those concerns are about their water bills, their safety, or anything else. I have also been in almost every day to sign off on necessary documents. And while I'm away, whatever I cannot sign electronically can be signed by Deputy Mayor Burnett. She will also handle any other matters I cannot directly handle. I'm taking a step back into a part-time position rather than a full-time position as I have been, while I get a grip on my physical and mental well-being. Special thanks to all our staff who are doing their part to handle matters to lessen the load on me for the time being. I just want to take a moment, though, to thank the hundreds of you that have reached out to me and to my family to ensure I'm okay, and to send words of support, love, and care. I can't put into words how important those messages are to me and how important they are as I take a few steps back to reflect on this journey. I've met some really awesome people in this community as mayor that I would not have met but for this job. My best example of this is Liz and Chris Biddle. They are two people I would have not met to the degree I have, and I'm sure we don't always agree on every issue, but that doesn't change my enormous respect, love, and care for both of them and their family now that I've gotten to know them. The fact that they both came up to me immediately after the last meeting to hug me and tell me they appreciated me is something I still fight tears back on when I think about it. There are many others out there who will likely know who they are, folks I wouldn't really have gotten to know to this degree. So when people ask me why I want to remain mayor despite some of these health hiccups, I point to those relationships and how I want to make sure the village of Ballston Spa is the best possible place for them and their families as much as I can. God willing, I will continue to focus and look forward to I will continue that focus and look forward to coming back with as much energy as ever. Thanks again for your patience and love, Mayor Frank. We just want to wish him well, and we have an awesome staff, and we have a board that works well together. So we will continue our work here and make sure everything's handled while he's gone. I don't have deputy mayor announcements. Treasurer's report I don't have in front of me, so I'm gonna pull a Frankie. Can you guys start your? Do you have a copy?
Do you need it?
Yeah, please.
Sorry,
Real quick, treasurer's report, February 9th. Utility update, water sewer bills were delivered to the village residents on February 1st. We are receiving a large amount of payments thus far. Please make sure to have your payments to the village office before the end of the business day on March 3rd to avoid a penalty. Payments can be mailed into the office, dropped off at the office between 8:30 and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, or left in our silver mailbox that is in front of the village office at any time. Customers can also pay online by visiting Ballston Spa and scroll down to the online bill pay. Budget requests for fiscal year 2027 will be sent out next week. If by the end of next week and you are a committee, board, department, and have not received your request, please contact the treasurer's office. We need this information completed by February 28th for budget consideration. Department heads, please contact Jennifer in the village office to set up a time to go over your budget with the mayor and treasurer. Sales tax distributions, total January sales tax received for $18,890. Oh no, I really misread that. $18,894,732. This amount was approximately $3.5 million, or 23.38% higher than that of the $15.3 million received in January of last year. Sales tax. 2026 year-to-date 11 months was up by just over 8.9 million, or 5.68%, from 107.6 million from the previous year, 2025, to 166.6 million for the current year, 2026. The village of Ballston received $129,798 on January 26, 2026. Add a new deputy treasurer, deputy clerk. Village office will have new employees starting next week. Lawrence Youngblood. Lawrence comes to us with a great amount of administrative experience. We are excited to get Lawrence acclimated to working in the municipal office and to help create a backup for the treasurer and clerk as this is essential to helping with the workload we are facing. And 44 degrees until spring. All right, someone else talk.
I will start with the library. The library always has so much going on. Their upcoming events, they're hosting a Winter Olympics reading challenge. Readers can earn tic-tac-toes to receive raffle tickets and try to win a prize. The challenge runs from February 6th through the 24th. 24th, and the drawing will be on February 25th. AARP free help is now, for taxes, is now active at the library. You can call 518-885-5022 for an appointment or pick up a packet in the community room. And February 18th from at 1 o'clock for children ages 3 to 6, they're hosting an Elmo-themed Everybody birthday party, which is sponsored by WMHT and NFP. I caught it. Registration is required, and you can call the library or stop in to register. Ballston area singers are going to be hosting a February dance for adults on February 14th from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. DJ Mark Hirsch will be supplying the music, and refreshments will be provided. The dance is open to the public, and admission is $7 donation. And that's all I have.
Lisa, can you hear me back there?
I can hear you, but I couldn't hear you.
Okay, I'm just making sure. All right, so I'm kind of short tonight, which usually have a lot to say. The Historic District Commission will hold its monthly meeting tomorrow, February 10th, 7 p.m. at 90 East High Street. Committee on the Arts will meet this Wednesday, February 11th at 7 p.m. at Brookside Museum. And this Saturday, February 14th, the committee is holding a Touch of Woodwinds concert at Brookside Museum at 3 p.m. So you want to check Brookside's website, because the insider information is that there's still spots open. So you can still get your ticket and you can register. While there, make sure that you register for Music for a Victorian Tea being held the following week, Saturday, February 21st, 3 p.m. at Brookside as well. And Park and Tree had a meeting change, and that's obviously already reflected on the website. But just for everyone who hasn't checked the website, the meeting is now Tuesday, February 24th at 7 p.m. in the Cornell Cooperative Conference Room.
For DPW this month, or the last couple of weeks, they've been working on snow removal operations across the village. You'll notice that the snowbanks on Front Street, Milton, Low, Ford, North High Street, and parts of Van Buren have been cleared, and the Bath Street parking lot was also cleared. They also, at the same, while they were doing that work, they were clearing fire hydrants as necessary around the village. They do want to express their thanks to property owners that cleared their own hydrants. They're in receipt of their first new dump truck in 12 years. With a second arriving in a few weeks, they're preparing the current one for service. And today they were deployed to a broken water main, the corner of East High Street and Eastern Avenue. And for anybody who's curious, the frost is 3 feet deep.
Laura Bell did my presentation. Very thankful for her work and the whole team and our committee. Honestly, they're great. So looking forward for you guys reading it, for your thoughts, and certainly when you get to that point where we have a public hearing, love to hear thoughts from the public. Encourage you, Paul, to, if you have questions, we'll make sure we get them answered. BSBPA, the Business Association, as far as I don't have anything specific other than congratulations to them for another successful, crazy packed chocolate fest. You gotta give them huge, Ellie is saying. They do such a great job, and it's so hard to get people in our small businesses during these cold months. No one wants to leave their house, but it seems to be a consistent thing that people, no matter how cold it is, are willing to come out for Chocolate Fest. So I know a lot of the chocolatiers sold out pretty quick. Ellie says, I don't know, by what time did you sell out at the?
Well, we had different stages of things, so it was all evening, but the chocolate bottles went within an hour and a half.
There you go. Yeah. So there was lines, and what little bit I got to taste was fantastic. So we just want to thank them and their volunteers for bringing stuff to downtown that encourages people to visit our shops. That's all I've got. Stephanie, I think it's your turn now. We have this little business.
I am reporting that there is a number of local laws that are being set to be heard in 2026 and are actively being pursued, the zoning code being the main one. Planning board is set to review this on Wednesday, discuss their comments, create a written advisory opinion. to then be presented by this board for the February 23rd meeting. At that point, the next step will be for the village board to review the planning board's advisory opinion, finalize the draft, finalize seeker, send the draft law and map to the county planning board, and then ultimately place it for a public hearing. Okay, ethics law is obviously being reviewed. I know that there are a few members of this board that are reviewing the details of the ethics review board's terms and how that is going to be rectified in a prompt manner. When that language is finalized, that will be placed on the agenda, which Carla is anticipating for the February 23rd meeting. And then once that language is finalized and submitted for a public hearing, then they were anticipating the appointment of those members being for as early as March 23rd. So that's active. Fence law, you are talking about how close the fence should be. Right now, the law prohibits fences from being installed closer than 6 inches to the boundary line. You folks have instructed her to draft language permitting the fence to be placed on the property line after the village has provided proof of such property line. So that is being looked at for March or April, and then the sidewalk law is the remaining item that is being set to be reviewed this year. And she said that that is set for May, June.
Alright. Now that in new business, we are up to public comment on any issue, 3 minutes. Again, remember, ground rules be nice. And just again, if anybody has particular questions related to the revitalized Ballston spot, I'll make note and pass it on to our Val and we can get some answers. Okay? Alright, anyone pick up Liz?
Liz Cornwell, 89 Hyde. Members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I urge you to immediately solicit applications and appoint members to restore a functioning village board of ethics. Section 27-21A1 of your code states that the board of ethics members shall be appointed by the village board of trustees and that the board shall consist of 5 members. Section 27-21A6 adds, it is the responsibility of the village board of trustees to solicit new applicants to fill current and upcoming vacancies on the Board of Ethics in a timely manner, including placing the vacancy on the board agenda and on the village website and social media until it is filled. Today, the Board of Ethics is effectually non-functional. 4 of the 5 members resign, and the required public solicitation for applicants has not occurred. One of those applicants was almost a year ago and was not refilled. There's no independent body to give confidential advisory opinions on conflicts of interest or other issues, or to receive, investigate, and determine complaints allegedly violations of the Code of Ethics. In practice, the village has suspended ethics advisory opinions and enforcement. That suspension undermines the purposes of Chapter 27, including ensuring decisions are made impartially and free from conflicts of interest, increasing public confidence in officials, and providing a fair and effective process for resolving ethics complaints. When the ethics board lapses, especially after a controversial determination involving the mayor, residents reasonably question whether the system operates only when it's politically convenient. The village does not have the discretion to ignore its own laws while amendments are discussed. 27-21 remains in full force and requires that vacancies be filled in a timely manner. New York courts have long held that when a local law uses mandatory language like shall and responsibility, municipalities must comply, and continued inaction creates unnecessary legal risk,
30 seconds.
Including potential Article 78 proceedings. Reconstituting the board is also good governance. These sections require members to be village residents, not village officers or employees, no more than 3 enrolled in the same political party, with additional requirements of disclosure, timely communication, residency, financial disclosure, and ethics training. This structure was designed so an active ethics board would be balanced, transparent, and capable, not a political weapon. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Ben?
Ben Baskin, 60 Ballston Ave. I'm happy to see that despite the mayor's announced leave of absence, that last week he remained very publicly active throughout the past week, including extensive social media activity, and from what you can see from his statement of what he had done. So and whatever mental health or other issues the mayor is experiencing, I truly hope he can get the help he needs, and also that he enjoys his time in Florida. Nevertheless, as you can see by the village website and tonight's agenda, no progress was made reconstituting the legally required but currently defunct ethics board, which is a core responsibility of village leadership. So thanks to private citizens' publicity, including myself, the mayor now has been able to identify several potential candidates for the ethics board, and you have them in your hand right now, and you could nominate them and bring them forward on the board right now. One thing I want you to consider is this idea that he's using this excuse of staggered terms as the obstacle to continuing and reconstituting ethics board. The terms are staggered in the current law. You could nominate 3 people tonight and 2 more next month, and the terms would be staggered. If the mayor had kept on top of the term end dates over the last 2 years for the previous people, we wouldn't even need to be discussing this issue because their terms were already staggered from the previous law. We did not contemplate that the mayor would allow the ethics board to completely disintegrate. We assumed it would continue from one law to the next. The fact that he failed to fill vacancies is the current situation where there is no ethics board. At this point, the mayor is being irresponsible, negligent, and in clear violation of the law. It's past time to set things right. Another major concern remains the administration's continued pursuit of development-oriented zoning changes that include the proposed introduction of planned development districts, an unprecedented shift in the village's land use framework. Given the mayor's background as a development attorney, these actions raise legitimate questions about priorities and interests guiding village development. Residents should remain attentive to any forthcoming amendments to laws governing the planning board and zoning board of appeals, which I assume is that off the table completely? I guess that's a question. It wasn't mentioned as a law that you're pursuing this year. That'd be good to know. So transparency about these intentions would help us rebuild trust and ensure that any future actions align with the public interest and public will. Lastly, I encourage all residents to review the Time Union's editorial board's assessment of Mayor Frank Rossi's recent performance and leadership direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa?
Lisa Spidell, I just knows the clerk. Just to kind of follow up things, I guess. The county office is moving. That was something that was a big concern a year or 2 years ago. We don't want the county to move out of here. What's happening with that? And I think if we could find out, that would be great. Or is that something that we have to be concerned about? Or is that going to remain here to support this village? That was the concern. If it moves out, what happens? Where are we on that? And then just another thought. It's really cold out. Really, really, really cold out. If you have pets, don't let them outside. And if you see them waiting at a window at a neighbor's or something, find out a way to get these things in because it's cruel. It's absolutely cruel, and it's happening. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Lisa, just briefly, I don't think we have an update from the county. They're not really, as far as I'm aware, they're not really.
If we can
moving
ask
forward.
and if we can get on it, because that's important, because, I mean, we kind of need to know what's going on.
just have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I also support Lisa's question, what's happening with the county buildings? That's really important. When you said that, budget requests are due by February 28th, is that internal budget requests, or is that from, people that are with nonprofits or whatever who do requests?
Oh, yeah, we'll be,
It means you.
Pardon?
It means you.
It means me.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm on it. Do we get a form like that, or do we go get a form from you, or,
you can just request it from Melissa. The treasurer.
I'm sorry?
You can request it from Melissa, the treasurer.
Okay, so I have to go down to the,
No,
Or
we
just
can email.
Or
shoot her an email.
oh,
Email's fine.
all right, that's all, I just wanted to clarify that, thanks.
Got a text as far as the county stuff, we ask frequently, there's no updates, so. Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
I don't think they have a path right now.
Who was that text from?
From Frank. From the mayor, he does ask frequently, but
Right.
still not those But, okay. We have Keith Lewis online.
You ready? There you go.
Keith Lewis, 38 East High Street. Since Ballston Spot proudly calls itself the Village of Friends, I think it's only fair we look to one of the best known rules among friends. Friends don't lie. Fans of Stranger Things on Netflix will recognize that line. It's short, honest, and surprisingly useful for municipal governance too. Now, we all know running a village isn't exactly a walk in Kelly Park, but it's complicated, thankless at times, and full of acronyms. But friendship and good government both rely on trust, and trust comes from following the rules that keep things fair and transparent. Unfortunately, some of those rules aren't being followed. As we know, our zoning and planning boards had appointments that didn't legal requirements, residency rules, term limits, oaths of office, and our ethics law, which requires an ethics board and procedures for handling advisory opinions and conflicts of interest, hasn't been properly implemented. That's not a small oversight. It's the structure that helps protect everyone, officials and citizens alike. No one expects this board to know every clause of village law or municipal law by heart. But it's a problem when residents have to spend their evenings double checking agendas, comparing code sections, or reminding the village that, yes, those laws actually do apply here. The Village of Friends shouldn't need a neighborhood watch for legal compliance. So here's the friendly part. We can fix it. This board can correct the planning and zoning appointments to comply with state law like they did tonight. It can finally activate the ethics mechanism our code requires, so all of us have a fair, trusted process for accountability. And that just wouldn't check a legal box. It would restore confidence to the village and show that you're walking and not just talking the talk. Because friends, after all, don't lie. And good friends, the kind that Ballston Spa is full of, help each other do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sean Raymond, 7 Chesterwood Court. Given the tragic events in Minneapolis, I urge the board to revisit former trustee Baskin's resolution on village law enforcement not working with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, otherwise known as ICE. Furthermore, I would also urge an amendment to that resolution that includes all village officials, departments, agencies, and staff as well. It has become clear that ICE has strayed far away from its intended purpose and has become a domestic terror organization. I believe anyone with a sense of ethics and morality would agree that ICE should not only be condemned for their actions, but the individuals responsible be prosecuted for the unwarranted killing of U.S. citizens. As Americans, we believe in upholding and exercising our constitutional rights, and ICE is ignoring those rights. We should not facilitate their terror campaign by working with them. Their agenda is no longer about apprehending undocumented immigrants, criminals in particular. Rather, ICE's purpose has become harassment of certain ethnic groups, detaining both immigrants and US citizens, pepper spraying, shooting, and/or killing anyone that dares to exercise their constitutional right to protest their illegal behavior. We have all heard the saying, silence means consent. The board is the voice of the village, and I do not believe that my fellow residents want their voice to be silent on this matter and have the appearance of condoning ICE's actions. Please fulfill your duty as board members and be the voice of reason. Be the voice of humanity. Be the protector of our rights. Pass that resolution. It was stated by the mayor when this resolution was before the board previously that the resolution might cost us sidewalk funding. I would like to think that most village residents would agree that human life and human rights far outweigh funding for sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give me a minute.
Can you get up there?
I will.
Okay.
I was gonna ask for an extension, but
Oh, please,
I
yeah.
don't want them right there.
Oh, okay.
Keep it there. I need to read it. All right, first I'd like 30 seconds to do a update that, Mary, I'm sure you forgot about our task force. March 7th, with all this wonderful weather, we may still have a winter festival.
We asked the last time. I'm being strict with you. You get your time like everyone else.
All right,
You get
well,
3
no,
minutes.
that's, she was supposed to do that. So,
That's all right.
I got 3 things. First, I want to make a suggestion to this board that you reorient your meeting so that you guys are here and the audience is out there so we can see this. I mean, almost everybody here was leaning on their neighbor to try and see the screen. We can't see the screen. And if it was oriented the other way, it would work out a lot better for everybody, I think. Just a thought. Secondly, the change of property lines in this new thing that was going on, was it the Ballston Spa? What was the plan called? Revitalization. Are there any changes to property lines in their zoning?
It has nothing to do with property lines.
It doesn't?
No.
Okay, so none of that is being changed?
No.
No lines are being changed from
No.
residential to commercial or any of that? Okay, that answers that question. Third, I have heard numerous times tonight the statement, letter of the law, and working with the law and making sure the law is followed. That lady right there knows the law better than any of us in this room, okay? She's a lawyer. We should rely on lawyers, okay? Not try to Google things and become lawyers ourselves. Secondly, if we're doing it, I'm very confused because we want letter of the law when it comes to our committees. But we just had a statement that we're not going to cooperate with federal laws. I don't understand that. I'm a little confused by that. Anything I say is Ray Otten's opinion from 16 Millbrook Avenue, by the way. It has nothing to do with my family, has nothing to do with my friends or anybody else. It's my own opinion. And that's the way I feel. That if we're gonna say we gotta abide by the letter of the law, let's do it all the way around. We can't say, well, but not cooperate with federal laws. Doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
I read earlier,
Now
it
this
was
will be
not
fun
engaging.
part.
All right, anyone else in the audience?
I just have a quick question. I just moved here not long ago.
What's your name and address? We gotta get you officially. It hasn't come out.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Rosansky. I live on Ackland Boulevard. I live where Grand Avenue and Roland Street is, and I've gone to the town of Milton, Saratoga. I even spoke to Frank, the mayor, about they're gonna be putting a roundabout, a traffic light there eventually after the apartments are built. But with all this construction going on, for these apartments, the traffic and the cement trucks and stuff, they're cooking down these roads. It's not a matter of if, it's when somebody's gonna get really hurt in an accident on the corner of Grand and Roland. Because if you're going this way, going east, and it's evening hours, the opposite car, their headlights are kind of up and they're shining in your face, and you can't make eye contact, so nobody knows which way the other guy is going. And if you wanna make a right on Roland Street, you've got traffic coming down, and these trucks, they go way over the speed limit.
Please.
So I was wondering, where do I go to?
Town of Milton, I'm sorry.
I did that.
I will relay this concern
Yeah,
to them.
because they came to me and go, we gotta do a traffic study, and I kinda like, spend 10 minutes, I mean, you'll see
I
it
know
yourself.
the state, and there's a lot of procedure that has to be followed and everything, but they're the proper channel to talk to. I will relay your concerns, I'm sure the mayor has done
Because when they
so
did the
well.
traffic circle, they had a temporary sign up, it was great, everybody liked it, and, so that was it.
Unfortunately, we have no jurisdiction.
Okay.
But thank you for being here, and I will
Thank you.
relay your concerns, thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you everybody for your comments. Oh, I gotta find my agenda, okay. All right, and then there's no other business, including but not limited to board response to public comment. Anybody have?
I did have one for Lisa and she left.
Well, we can make sure.
Part of the requirement of a planning board alternate is to attend as many meetings as physically possible. It's almost impossible to be an alternate on a board in month 2 if you don't know what happened in month 1. So everybody who was appointed tonight as an alternate was told that they are expected to make as many meetings as possible. As when I was a planning board alternate, that's what I did. You go to as many meetings as you can, because you never know when you're going to be called to actually be on the board to vote on a proposal that was heard the month prior or 2 months prior.
I just want to thank everybody for being well behaved. I'm very proud of us. No, it's appreciated. There's very different opinions in this, community, but it's important that we can have these discussions. Again, just reiterating that, yes, I was on ZBA and as an alternate, and you gotta learn, you gotta go to the meetings to learn, and I am sure that folks that have been appointed tonight will do so. All right, anything else? No?
I just want to apologize to Rain that I didn't. I should have, and
It's okay.
no
It's
excuses.
fine.
March 7th, Saturday, sledding down Back Street.
All right, there's no need for executive session, and may I please have a motion that the vouchers be audited and that the meeting be adjourned at 8:27.
You did what?
Paul second, I'll have Mary first.
Okay.
Paul second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all. Have a